Robert Hale walked into his mansion, expecting silence. Nobody knew he was back. The house stood quiet, cathedral-like, the way it had been for 2 years. But then, he heard something. Sounds. His heart started racing. He didn't know what it was, couldn't place it, couldn't believe it. He moved toward it, following the noise, his hands trembling. It was coming from the kitchen. He pushed open the door, and what he saw stopped his heart. Robert Hale was a billionaire, Silicon Valley tech genius, self-made. He'd turned a college dorm room idea into a global empire worth $3 billion. Cloud security systems, protecting governments. Fortune 500 companies. Entire nations. Everything he touched turned to gold. But money couldn't bring back what he'd lost. His wife, Claire, died in childbirth complications. Stanford Medical Center. Emergency C-section to save the triplets. She hemorrhaged. The doctors tried everything. She whispered 3 names: Fiona, Isla, Kiana, and then she was gone. Robert was in Tokyo closing a $400 million acquisition when he got the call. At her funeral, something broke inside his 3 daughters before they even had a chance to know their mother: Fiona, Ayla, and Kiana. 2 years old now. Identical triplets. Honey blonde curls, gray-green eyes that looked exactly like Claire's. They'd stopped developing emotionally. All 3. At the same time, Fiona used to babble constantly, reaching for everything. Isla giggled at peekaboo, her whole face lighting up. Kiana hummed to herself, always content in her own little world. Now, nothing. Silence. 2 years of emotional shutdown. No laughter, no reaching out, no eye contact. Just 3 little girls clinging to each other, staring past everyone like they were living behind glass. Robert spent millions trying to fix it. Child psychologists from Johns Hopkins, specialists from London, neurodevelopmental experts from Switzerland. Therapy after therapy after therapy. He took them to sensory clinics, to the beach, to child-centered resorts in the Maldives. He bought them every educational toy invented. Built them a custom playroom designed by childhood development experts. Nothing worked. The girls stayed locked inside themselves, silent together, like they'd made a pact with grief before they even understood what grief was. So Robert did what broken men do. He ran, he buried himself in work. 18-hour days. Business trips every other week. London, Dubai, Shanghai, Berlin, because sitting in that house felt like drowning in everything he'd failed to protect. His estate in Pacific Heights had 9 bedrooms, a rooftop garden, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. A meditation room he never used. But it was the loneliest place on earth. One evening, Martha, the head nanny who'd been with the family since the girls were born, approached him in his study. "Mr. Hale, I need to talk to you. I can't do this alone anymore. The house is too big. The girls need more than I can give them. Can I hire someone?" Robert barely looked up from his laptop. "Hire whoever you need, Martha. Just handle it." 3 days later, Luna Hart walked through the door. 28 years old. From Oakland. Studying early childhood education at night while working 3 jobs. Her mother had died when Luna was 19. And she'd raised her 2 younger sisters alone. She understood grief. She knew what it felt like to keep breathing when your soul was shattered. She also understood faith. Real faith. The kind her grandmother taught her, a healer from the South, who prayed over everything and everyone. Who believed God spoke through stillness and that broken hearts could be mended with patience and presence. Robert saw Luna once in the hallway. She was carrying fresh linens, her hair tied back, moving quietly through the house like she belonged to the walls. She nodded respectfully. He didn't even look at her. But his daughters noticed. Luna didn't try to fix them. She didn't force them to talk or smile or engage. She just showed up every single day. Folding laundry, humming old hymns while she worked, cleaning their rooms, being present. And slowly, like spring after a long winter, the girls started coming closer. In the first week, Fiona watched from the doorway while Luna made the beds. Then Ayla. Then Kiana. In the second week, Luna hummed softly while organizing toys. Kiana crept closer, just listening, her little hand gripping the edge of her blanket. In the third week, Ayla left a crayon drawing on the clean laundry, a purple flower. Luna picked it up like it was priceless. She smiled, tears in her eyes, and taped it to the kitchen wall. "This is beautiful, sweetheart," she whispered, and Ayla's eyes flickered. Just a little. Week after week, something was happening. Something quiet, something sacred, something Robert never saw because he was never home. The girls started whispering to Luna, then speaking in sentences, then laughing while she folded towels, their giggles spilling into the hallways like light breaking through cracks. Luna didn't announce it, she just loved them, gently, patiently, like watering a garden and trusting God to bring the growth. She prayed over them every night. Soft words, affirmations, blessings her grandmother taught her. She'd lay her hand on their foreheads and whisper, "You are loved. You are safe. You are seen." And slowly, cell by cell, heartbeat by heartbeat, the girls began to come back to life. Robert had no idea his daughters were being resurrected. He was in Berlin closing a massive deal, exhausted, burned out, numb. He wasn't supposed to come home for 3 more days, but something inside him said, "Go." Not a thought, a knowing, a pull, like a hand on his chest turning him around. He didn't call ahead, he just booked a flight and left. When he walked through the front door, the house was quiet, like always. He expected nothing different. But then he heard something. Sounds. His chest tightened. He stood frozen in the entryway, his heart hammering. It couldn't be. The house had been silent for 2 years. But the sounds were real. Laughter. Children's laughter. Robert's hands started shaking. His breath caught. He didn't understand. He moved toward the sound, down the hallway, faster now, his pulse roaring in his ears. It was coming from the kitchen. He reached the door. His hand trembled as he pushed it open, and what he saw inside stopped his entire world. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button, click like, and tell me where in the world you're watching from, because this story will remind you that miracles can happen in the most unexpected moments and that love can bring back what we thought was lost forever. But to understand why this moment shattered Robert Hale completely, why the sight of his daughters laughing nearly brought him to his knees, you need to know the full weight of what he'd been carrying. The guilt, the grief, the fear that he'd lost them forever, and the woman who'd quietly done what no amount of money ever could. This is the story of how a housekeeper with nothing but faith and love brought a broken family back from the edge of the abyss. Robert stood in the doorway, frozen, staring at a scene that shouldn't have been possible. His 3 daughters, dressed in matching purple dresses with oversized bows in their hair, were laughing. Actually laughing. Fiona and Ayla sat on the kitchen counter, legs swinging, faces glowing with joy. Kiana was perched on Luna's hip, her small arms wrapped around the housekeeper's neck, giggling as Luna spun her gently in a circle. The kitchen smelled like vanilla and cinnamon. Sunlight poured through the windows. Music played softly from somewhere, a gentle melody Robert couldn't place. And in the center of it all was Luna, her face radiant, her movements easy and natural, like she'd been mothering these girls her entire life. Robert's throat tightened, his vision blurred. He tried to speak, but couldn't find words. Luna saw him first. Her smile faltered. She gently set Kiana down, smoothing the child's dress, and turned toward him, wiping her hands nervously on her apron. "Mr. Hale," she said softly, "I didn't know you were coming home today." The girls turned to look at him. Their laughter stopped. Not all at once, but slowly, like a light dimming. Fiona's smile faded. Isla's eyes dropped. Kiana stepped closer to Luna, gripping the hem of her dress. Robert's heart cracked open. They were afraid of him. His own daughters were afraid of him. "What is this?" His voice came out rougher than he intended. "What's happening here?" Luna glanced at the girls. then back at Robert. She took a slow breath, steadying herself. Mr. Hale, the girls and I were just spending some time together. I've been working with them, helping them. I should have told you, but I wasn't sure how. And I didn't want to disrupt what was happening because it felt sacred. Sacred? Robert's voice rose. What are you talking about? Working with them how? Luna folded her hands in front of her, her voice calm but trembling slightly. I've been teaching them morning affirmations. Simple words. I am loved. I am safe. I am here. Just grounding them in the present. I've been using breathing routines with them, especially when they get overwhelmed. Counting breaths. Feeling their heartbeat, connecting them back to their bodies. Robert stared at her, his mind spinning. I've been telling them stories, Luna continued, her voice softening. Stories about brave little girls. About love that never leaves. I've been playing music for them, letting them move and dance. And I've been praying over them every night before they sleep. Blessing them. Speaking life over them. Robert's jaw clenched. You've been praying over my children? Yes. Luna didn't flinch. I learned these things from my grandmother. She was a healer. Not a doctor, but a woman who understood that broken hearts need more than medicine. They need presence. They need touch. They need someone to see them and say, you are not alone. Robert felt something twist inside him. Anger, shame, jealousy, he didn't know which. Luna's eyes glistened with tears, but she kept speaking. Fiona used to cry silently at night. Did you know that, Mr. Hale? She would sit in her bed, tears running down her face, not making a sound. I held her, I rocked her. I told her it was okay to cry out loud. That tears were prayers. And one night, she finally did. She sobbed in my arms for an hour, and after that, she started speaking again. Robert's hands trembled. Isla had nightmares every single night. She would wake up shaking, terrified. But she wouldn't call for anyone because she'd learned that no one came. So I started sleeping in the chair in their room, and when she woke up, I was there. I prayed with her. I told her God was holding her even in the dark, and slowly the nightmares stopped. Robert's throat burned, and Kiana, Luna's voice, broke slightly. Kiana wouldn't let anyone touch her. She would pull away from everyone, even Martha. But one day, I was humming while I folded laundry. A lullaby. I didn't even realize what it was, and Kiana came over and just stood there, staring at me. So I kept humming, and she climbed into my lap. And for the first time in 2 years, she let someone hold her. Robert realized, with a sickening jolt, that the lullaby was one Claire used to sing. How did Luna know that? I didn't plan any of this, Luna said, tears streaming down her face now. I just showed up, every day. I love them. I believed God sent me here for a reason. I believed these girls could be healed. And they are healing. Mr. Hale. They're coming back. Robert's chest heaved. Everything she was saying should have filled him with gratitude, relief, joy. But instead, all he felt was rage, because she had done what he couldn't. She had reached his daughters when he had failed. She had given them something he didn't even know they needed, and they loved her for it. They loved her more than they loved him. You had no right. His voice was cold now, sharp. You had no right to do any of this without my permission. These are my children, Luna. Mine. Not yours. Luna's face crumpled, but she didn't look away. You overstepped, Robert continued, his voice rising. You manipulated them. You got them attached to you. What happens when you leave? Huh? What happens when they lose you too? Did you think about that? Mr. Hale, No. Robert's voice cracked like a whip. You don't get to explain. You don't get to justify this. You're the housekeeper. That's all. And you crossed a line. The kitchen went silent. The girls stood frozen, their faces pale, their eyes wide. The light that had filled the room moments ago vanished, sucked out like air from a collapsing lung. Fiona's lip trembled. Ayla wrapped her arms around herself. Kiana turned away, burying her face in Luna's dress. Luna looked down at the girls, her heart breaking. Then she looked back at Robert, and when she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Mr. Hale, I understand you're angry. I understand you're afraid, but your heart is broken. And until you let someone help you heal it, you will keep wounding everyone who tries to love you." Robert's breath caught. Her words hit him like a fist to the chest. Luna knelt down, kissed each of the girls on the forehead, and stood. She walked past Robert without looking at him, her shoulders shaking. The girls didn't move, didn't speak, didn't cry. They just stood there, silent again, the way they'd been for 2 years, like ghosts. And Robert realized, with a horror that made him want to scream, that he had just destroyed the only miracle his daughters had ever known. Luna's voice echoed in his head as she disappeared down the hallway. "Mr. Hale, your heart is broken, but it is reachable." The house died again. It happened slowly at first, like watching a flower wilt in reverse time. The warmth that had filled the hallways for 6 weeks vanished. The music stopped. The laughter disappeared. Even the sunlight seemed dimmer, colder, like it had given up trying to reach into the corners. Luna became a shadow. She still came to work every day, arriving at 7 in the morning and leaving at 6 in the evening. But she moved through the house like a ghost. She cleaned in silence. She folded laundry without humming. She prepared meals with her head down, her hands efficient but joyless. And she avoided the girls. Not cruelly, not coldly, but deliberately, respectfully, because Robert had made it clear that she had overstepped, and Luna was nothing if not obedient to boundaries, even when those boundaries broke her heart. When Kiana reached for her in the hallway, Luna gently moved her hand away and kept walking. When Isla brought her a drawing, Luna placed it on the counter without looking at it. When Fiona stood in the doorway of the kitchen, watching her with desperate, pleading eyes, Luna turned her back and scrubbed the counters harder. The girls didn't understand. How could they? One day they had a mother figure who loved them, and the next day she was gone, still physically present but emotionally unreachable. It was a special kind of cruelty, the kind that happens when adults make decisions children have to suffer for. Robert watched it all unfold from a distance, and the horror grew in his chest like a tumor. Fiona stopped talking again, completely. Within 3 days, the words she had just started using again disappeared. She sat at the breakfast table, staring at her plate, her lips pressed together like she'd made a vow of silence. Ayla refused to eat. She would sit in front of her food, tears streaming down her face, shaking her head whenever Martha tried to coax her. She dropped 2 pounds in a week, her face growing gaunt, her eyes hollow. And Kiana, sweet Kiana, began clinging to Luna's apron whenever Luna passed by. She wouldn't speak, wouldn't cry. She would just grab the fabric and hold on, her knuckles white, her body trembling, until Luna gently pried her fingers loose and walked away. Every time it happened, Robert felt like someone was driving a knife deeper into his chest. He tried to reach them himself. He sat with them at meals, attempted to play with them in the playroom, read them stories at bedtime, but they looked through him like he was made of glass. They tolerated his presence the way prisoners tolerate guards. He had broken something sacred, and he didn't know how to fix it. On the 5th day, Martha found him in the hallway, standing outside the girls' playroom, watching them sit in silence, holding each other's hands the way they used to before Luna came. "Mr. Hale," Martha said quietly, "we need to talk." Robert turned to her, his face haggard, his eyes red-rimmed. Martha didn't soften her words. She had known him too long for that. "Luna healed those girls in 6 weeks. 6 weeks, Mr. Hale. More than every specialist, every therapist, every expert you flew in from around the world. She gave them something none of those people could give them. She gave them love. Real, patient, selfless love. And you destroyed it." Robert's jaw clenched. "Martha, No." Her voice was firm. "You don't get to explain this away. You didn't just wound Luna. You wounded the children. They don't understand why she won't hold them anymore. They think she stopped loving them, and they think it's because of you. Robert felt the words like punches. You're a brilliant man, Mr. Hale. You've built an empire. But you don't know the first thing about being a father. And until you figure that out, those girls will keep slipping away from you. Martha walked away, leaving Robert standing alone in the hallway, his hands shaking, his breath coming in short gasps. He made it to his study before he fell apart. He locked the door, staggered to his desk, and collapsed into the chair. And for the first time in 2 years, Robert Hale broke. Not the controlled, silent grief he'd allowed himself at Claire's funeral. Not the numbness he'd wrapped around himself like armor. This was raw, guttural, soul-deep sobbing that tore out of him like something dying. He cried for Claire, for the girls, for the years he'd lost running from his own pain, for the miracle he'd destroyed because he was too broken to recognize grace when it stood in front of him. And somewhere in the depths of his anguish, a thought emerged, clear and undeniable. Luna wasn't replacing Claire. She was restoring what Claire had prayed for. A mother's love. A safe place. A chance for their daughters to be whole. Claire had begged God with her last breaths to send someone to love their girls, and God had sent Luna. And Robert, in his brokenness, had driven her away. He didn't know how long he sat there, his face in his hands, his body shaking. Hours, maybe. The sun set. The house grew dark. Finally, he pulled himself together enough to leave his study. He moved through the hallways like a dead man walking, heading toward his bedroom. But as he passed the girl's room, he heard something. Voices. Soft, whispered. He stopped, his heart pounding. He stepped closer to the door, pressing his ear against it. Maybe Luna won't come back because Daddy shouts, Fiona's small voice said. Robert's breath caught. Luna makes us feel loved, Isla whispered. Why can't Daddy smile like her? I miss her, Kiana said, her voice breaking. Did Daddy chase her away? There was a long silence. Then Fiona spoke again, her words so quiet Robert almost didn't hear them. I think Daddy's heart is broken like ours was. But Luna fixed ours. Maybe nobody can fix Daddy's. Robert's legs gave out. He slid down the wall, collapsing onto the floor, his hand pressed over his mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. Tears poured down his face, hot and unstoppable. His daughters thought he was beyond fixing. They thought he was too broken to reach. And the worst part was, until 5 minutes ago, he would have agreed with them. But sitting there on the cold floor, listening to his children whisper about love and brokenness, and the father who couldn't give them what they needed, something shifted inside Robert Hale. A small voice, barely audible, whispered in the deepest part of his soul, Your heart is broken, but it is reachable. And for the first time in 2 years, Robert Hale believed it might be true. Robert didn't sleep that night. He couldn't. The whispers of his daughters echoed in his mind like a prayer he didn't know how to answer. By the time the sun began to rise, he was standing in the garden, Claire's favorite place, the one corner of the estate he'd avoided for 2 years. The roses she'd planted were still there, wild and overgrown now, but blooming. Red, white, pink. She used to say gardens were proof that beauty could grow from dirt and patience. That life always found a way back. Robert walked to the center of the garden, to the stone bench where Claire used to sit with her hands on her belly, talking to the babies she'd never get to raise. He stood there for a long moment, his throat tight, his hands trembling, and then, slowly, he dropped to his knees. He didn't know how to pray anymore, didn't know if God would even listen, but he tried anyway. I don't know if you're there, he whispered, his voice breaking. I don't know if you hear me. But I need help. I need forgiveness. I failed them. I failed Claire. I failed my girls. I've been so afraid of losing them that I pushed away the one person who could save them. Tears streamed down his face, soaking into the earth beneath him. Please, show me how to be the father they need. Show me how to fix this. Give me a second chance. I'm begging you. The garden was silent, except for the sound of birds waking, the rustle of leaves, the whisper of wind. But something shifted inside Robert. Not a voice, not a vision, just a deep, quiet knowing. He wasn't alone. He'd never been alone. He'd just been too broken to see it. When he finally stood, his legs shaking, his face streaked with tears, he knew what he had to do. He found Luna in the kitchen 2 hours later, preparing breakfast in silence. She didn't look up when he entered, just kept slicing fruit with steady hands, her face calm but distant. "Luna," Robert said softly. She paused, her knife hovering over an apple. But she didn't turn around. "I need to talk to you, please." Luna set the knife down slowly and turned to face him. Her eyes were guarded, her posture tense. She was waiting for another accusation, another explosion. Robert took a breath. "I'm sorry," his voice cracked. "I'm so sorry for what I said, for how I treated you, for what I took from the girls." Luna's expression didn't change, but her hands gripped the edge of the counter. "I was afraid," Robert continued, his voice raw. "I was jealous. I was ashamed that you could reach them when I couldn't. I felt like I was losing them, like they loved you more than they loved me. And instead of being grateful, I lashed out. I hurt you. I hurt them. And I don't know if I can ever make that right, but I need you to know that I see it now. I see what you did. And it was a miracle." Luna's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. "Mr. Hale." "Robert," he said. "Please, just Robert." She nodded slowly. "Robert, I appreciate your apology. But I need to know this isn't just guilt talking. Because if I go back to loving those girls the way I was, and you take it away from them again, it will destroy them. And I won't be part of that." Robert's chest tightened. "I understand." Luna hesitated, then spoke carefully, her voice soft but firm. "Before I took this job, I prayed. I asked God if this was where I was supposed to be. And I had a vision. I saw a man surrounded by darkness, drowning in it. But there was light trying to break through, trying to reach him. And I heard a voice say, 'He is broken, but reachable.' I believed that man was you. I believed God sent me here to help heal your family." Robert stared at her, his throat burning. "But I also believe," Luna continued, "that you have to step into the light yourself. I can't do it for you. The girls can't do it for you. You have to choose it. Every single day." Robert nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I will, I promise. I'll do whatever it takes." Luna studied him for a long moment. Then, finally, she nodded. "Okay. But we do this together. And if you ever shut me out again, I'm gone. Not because I don't care, but because they deserve better than half-healed love." "I understand," Robert whispered. The next morning, Robert woke up early. He made breakfast, something he hadn't done in years. Pancakes. Badly shaped, slightly burnt, but made with his own hands. When the girls came down, they stared at him like he was a stranger. "Good morning," he said softly, kneeling down to their level. "I made breakfast. Will you sit with me?" They exchanged glances, uncertain. But slowly, they climbed into their chairs. Robert sat with them. He didn't check his phone, didn't think about work. He just watched them eat, asked them gentle questions, listened when Isla pointed at a bird outside the window. Later, he sat on the floor of the playroom while they played. He learned their routines. He practiced Luna's affirmations with them. "You are loved. You are safe. You are seen." The words felt awkward in his mouth at first, but he kept saying them, and one by one, he apologized to each of them. He knelt in front of Fiona and told her he was sorry for not being there. He held Isla's hand and told her he was learning how to be a better father. He hugged Kiana and promised he would try every single day. It was slow, painful. Some days they pulled away from him. Some days they cried. But Luna was there, guiding him, showing him how to be patient, how to be present. And slowly, the girls began to soften. 3 weeks later, something shifted. Robert was sitting in the living room, reading a story out loud, when Luna walked in carrying a basket of laundry. The girls, who had been curled up next to Robert, suddenly jumped up and ran to her, laughing, pulling her toward the couch. "Luna," Sit with us, Isla said. Luna glanced at Robert, uncertain. He smiled. A real smile. Please. Join us. Luna sat down, and the girls immediately climbed into the space between them, giggling, pressing close to both of them. For the first time, they didn't have to choose. They had both, and they were safe. Fiona looked up at Robert, her small hand resting on his arm. Her voice was so soft he almost didn't hear it. Daddy, will you be like this every day? Robert's vision blurred. He cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing away a stray curl. I will try, sweetheart. Every single day, I will try. I promise. Fiona nodded, satisfied. Then she leaned her head against his chest, and for the first time in 2 years, Robert felt like a father again. Luna caught his eye across the couch. She smiled, tears glistening on her cheeks. And in that moment, Robert understood what Claire had prayed for. Not a replacement, not a substitute, but a village. A circle of love strong enough to hold broken people until they could stand again. The house was no longer silent, the halls no longer cold. Laughter returned, music returned, light returned. And Robert Hale, the man who thought his heart was beyond repair, learned that healing begins where love returns. And sometimes, love returns through the hands of a woman who believes in miracles, even when the broken don't believe in themselves.